Personality and behavioral assessment are huge parts of clinical psychology. But let's be honest, there's way more to them than just standardized tests and structured observations. Today, I'm going to share with you some surprising, some futuristic, and even controversial aspects of personality and behavioral assessments that don't always make it into the textbooks. Okay? So let's dive in. Let's start with the future of personality and behavioral assessment. Now, we know psychology is changing. It's changing faster and faster as time goes on. And artificial intelligence is jumping right into the mix, isn't it? Picture using algorithms that can scan your social media activity, scan your speech patterns, even scan your facial expressions to predict your personality traits. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's happening. Then there's things like digital phenotyping. Digital phenotyping is where your smartphone can offer clues to your mood and your behavior just by tracking things like your typing speed or your app usage. And then there's virtual reality, or what we call VR for short. Imagine stepping into a simulated world where psychologists can observe how you handle a stressful situation, whether it's a crowded room for someone with social anxiety or a combat scenario for a PTSD patient. VR isn't just for gaming anymore. It's opening up new ways to standardize behavioral assessments. It can make them more immersive and in some ways more realistic. I personally think all of this is fascinating, but it's also a little unsettling. Do we really want companies or clinicians assessing our personalities just by looking at our digital footprint? I don't know. Now that leads me to talk about the dark side of personality assessment for a moment. Did you know that not all advances in personality testing have been positive? Throughout history, these kinds of tests have been used in some ways that can make us sort of, cringe today. For example, some were manipulated to justify eugenics programs, while others, they were used to filter out so-called undesirable job candidates. Take the MMPI, for example. This is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It's one of the most well-known, well-used, empirically validated tests in the world. It's very well respected. It's one that I've administered myself many, many times. At one point, companies started using the MMPI a lot in their hiring decisions, but ultimately it was found that it could unfairly impact certain groups. Still, approximately 80% of Fortune 500 companies today still use some form of personality test, and it's supposed to inform their hiring decisions. Now, other personality assessments aren't without controversy either. Take the Big Five, for example. The Big Five is one of the most widely accepted models of personality, but it doesn't always translate well across different cultures. Plus, once you're given a label like introvert, extrovert, type A, type B, first you have to remember that label can stick with you. But also, that label can shape your behavior in ways you might not even realize. And that can turn into what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And let's talk about self-report bias. How well do you think people can really assess their own personalities? Good question. Okay. I also want to talk a little bit about pop culture and pseudoscience in personality assessment. Now, despite all this science, people absolutely love personality quizzes. Personality quizzes from magazines like Cosmopolitan and 17 and Glamour, Men's Health, Psychology Today. You even have teen and pop culture publications like Teen Vogue and J14 and even social media platforms. We We can't get enough of them. I even think they're fun. So when you think about all of these tests, scientific or not, anything from Myers-Briggs to the Enneagram to astrology, why do we trust these systems even when we know that some of them are not backed by science? Well, one reason is called the Barnum effect. The Barnum effect is a phenomenon where people interpret vague, kind of general statements as highly personal and accurate even. So you read an interpretation from a personality test you took. You sometimes feel confident, but also struggle with self-doubt. And suddenly you think, wow, that's really me. That's the Barnum effect. And then there's social media, right? Like TikTok and BuzzFeed, Instagram. These platforms fuel how we see ourselves a lot of the time and how we want others to see us, don't they? But some questions we might want to ask, what we need to ask here, is it really possible to gauge personality from online behavior? Is it possible that we could have an online personality on one side that's separate or different from our in-person personality? But more importantly, though, I want you to think about what happens when we start reducing complex human traits to trendy categories and viral labels. This is becoming more and more important to think about as time goes on, especially now. Don't you think? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so what about extreme cases with personality tests? Personality and behavior in high stakes kinds of settings. You may not know this, but personality and behavioral assessments aren't just for therapy sessions or for a job. They're also used in some of the most high-stakes situations imaginable. For example, in forensic psychology, these assessments play a role in criminal investigations. They're just shaping the profiling techniques that we use in law enforcement. But remember, I don't want you to get snookered. While TV shows like Criminal Minds, for example, that's the one that comes to my mind, they make FBI profiling look like a flawless science. The reality of it is, at least for today, that is far less precise than what Hollywood would have us believe. Then there's the world of extreme professions, astronauts, special forces, sometimes even elite athletes, those athletes that maybe compete on teams. These individuals undergo intense psychological evaluations to determine who can stay calm, who can stay focused and adaptable under pressure. The ability to thrive in extreme environments isn't just about skill or training, it's about personality traits too. Personality traits that help people push past limits that most of us can't even imagine. So in conclusion, at the end of the day, personality and behavioral assessments are more than just tools. They shape how we see ourselves and how others see us. They influence hiring decisions, mental health treatments, and even forensic investigations. But as these tools evolve, so do the questions we have to ask, like, are we using them responsibly? Are we recognizing their limitations? And most importantly, are we remembering that behind every assessment, every algorithm, every label, there's a real person with a complex, ever-changing personality? So, as future psychologists, thinkers, even skeptics too, it's up to us to navigate this. Now more than ever, not only with curiosity, but with caution. The science of personality is still unfolding, and I'd like you to remember that it's our job to make sure it's used to understand people, not to box them in. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and most of all, keep in mind that no test can define who you truly are. All right? Now, this is the last chapter in the assessment unit. Our next chapter starts us off on our final unit, and it's of psychotherapy. We'll take all the knowledge that we've gained thus far in Unit 1, like evolution of clinical psychology, the ethics and cultural diversity, and in the controversies of the field. We'll combine that with the knowledge that we gained from Unit 2 on assessment. And when we get through the psychotherapy unit, you'll have a well-rounded knowledge of psychotherapy, particularly about the different orientations used in the practice of it. Those of you who are going into grad school and are interviewing or will be interviewing, you may get a question where they ask you, what's your psychotherapeutic orientation? Now, this next unit will help you define what that means, what those orientations are, and define for yourself what you are most comfortable with. So you won't be stumped when you're asked that question potentially. It'll influence the type of therapy that you like best, that you feel most comfortable using, and that you find the most useful for you. I think it'll be very helpful. Looking forward to going through it with you.